So I always like to use this motif to sort of describe the nature of what occurs in these undervalued companies. Most companies are going to go through this cycle. There are a very small number of companies that can avoid this cycle, but very small number of them. This is from a woodcut from Albrecht Dürer in 1494 from a book called The Ship of Fools, which is about some fools on a ship to a fool's paradise, and they go through it. They have a number of follies, and one of them is hubris about where they are and disregarding the role of luck in their own lives, good and bad. So the wheel, it's the wheel of fortune. That's Fortuna's hand puppeting the wheel in the top left-hand corner. The ass at the top is Regnault, Irene, and you can see that he's at the very pinnacle and he's about to descend down the other side, but instead he reaches out for the sun. And this is what, in the academic financial literature, they describe as naive extrapolation. You imagine that your current state will continue on when, in actual fact, mean reversion is a much more likely outcome. So the next Regnavi, Irene, he's slowly turning back into a man as he descends down the other side. And this is perhaps where deep value investors want to stake their claim. Sum sine Regnault, I am without a kingdom. He's not even visible on the woodcut. And then back up the other side, Regnabo, I will reign. Maybe that's another good time to invest too. So if what we're looking for is fundamental weakness, declining earnings, and undervaluation, the thing that makes them difficult to buy for other investors makes it equally difficult for us to buy. So how can we avoid making the behavioural errors that other investors are making? How can we not be the naive extrapolation investor and become the contrarian value investor that captures that upside performance from buying companies with ugly fundamentals? There's been a great deal of research into this area of the role of statistical prediction models and experts. It's a counterintuitive area of study for this reason. So a professor went and studied 1,000 admissions to hospital of depression or psychosis, and apparently on initial presentation they can appear very similar. Then there's a subsequent diagnosis several weeks or months later where they're able to determine properly whether the patient who presented was in fact psychotic or depressed. So he created, by examining the admission records and the subsequent diagnoses, he created a simple questionnaire that could be administered by psychologists when these people presented to the hospital, and they could make a determination. So without the benefit of the model, the worst psychologists got it right about 55% of the time, on average about 62%, and the very best psychologists got it right 67% of the time. The simple model in backtest got it right 70% of the time. The professor distributed the questionnaire to a variety of different psychologists in the hospital. There were two. Basically, they were inexperienced who were students, and then there were clinical psychologists who were actually treating patients. And they found that without the benefit of the model, the inexperienced students got it right about 59% of the time. The experienced clinical psychologists got it right about 64% of the time. The inexperienced psychologists, with the benefit of the model, but the ability to override the model's output, got it right about 2/3 of the time. And the experienced psychologists, with the benefit of the model, got it right 75% of the time. But this is the really incredible thing. The simple model by itself outperformed all of them. And the reason is that we make errors when we attempt to apply a model and we don't follow the model's output, and that leads us to underperform what the simple model does by itself.